with near everyone complaining about credit card bills they can no longer pay and mortgages they never should have taken out in the first place, it was just a matter of time before the debt consolidation industry took hold of the public's imagination. Most people finally seem to understand that, after 2005 congressional legislation, Chapter 7 bankruptcy no longer promises anything to ordinary consumers beyond increasingly dear attorney fees, and, if recent studies are true, our national obsession with unsecured debt continues unabated. An article in the Wall Street Journal announced that the average household now carries a dozen credit cards among their members with a total balance approaching $18,000. Honestly, if anything, it seems odd that Americans did not turn to the debt consolidation approach sooner. Once debts have reached the size and number that makes their speedy resolution untenable, it just makes good sense to examine whatever alternatives now exist. However, it's one thing to take a look at debt consolidation and quite another to jump blindly into the first program sold by a glib professional promising the world. Debt consolidation may be a solution, but each of the various programs will contain its own share of dangers. More to the point, they certainly shan't eliminate lifelong burdens without some degree of discipline on the part of the borrower. Just because we as a people have finally recognized our problems with debt both secured and unsecured does not mean that we are actively striving to fundamentally eat away at the underlying concern. Debt consolidation is sort of a catch-all phrase for many different approaches toward managing financial burdens, and not all of these consolidation programs should be equally respected. Indeed, some of the shadier options could even be considered actively destructive to the borrower's household economics. In this essay, we would like to discuss some of the problems that debt consolidation presents for families. While the notion of consolidation has received a good deal more attention of late, the same cannot be said about the details surrounding the various techniques utilized. Also, we would like to introduce some of the ways that consolidation could be simply avoided through hard work and disciplined budgeting on the part of the borrowers. Remember, even though it's far less damaging than bankruptcy, all forms of debt consolidation should still be viewed as last-ditch efforts to repair mishaps or heal poor purchasing decisions from past years. The debts are not going to be eliminated after all, and it's important that consumers remember that they are still liable for the sums even once they are consolidated. If debtors continue the same careless shopping sprees and knowingly spend more than they earn, then consolidation will have no effect and, once again, could even worsen the borrower's overall financial scenario. One of the main principles you should take to heart when looking at the debt consolidation process should be this adage: the lower the payment, the longer you're going to be stuck paying off your debt. The less that you pay every month following a successful debt consolidation, it should be understood, will only increase the amount of money that you will pay at the end of the loan after compound interest continues to expand the overall balance. It's just common sense, really. Put off paying today what you could pay off tomorrow, and you will inevitably owe exponentially more. Most lenders, of course, will never illustrate the philosophy. Consolidation companies' income largely comes from just this sort of accumulation of interest payments, and they generally try to appeal to borrowers' oft delusional beliefs that they will immediately quit the spending reflexes of a lifetime and devote themselves to patterns of saving that would allow them to repay their loan that much earlier by paying over the minimums. Don't be fooled by easy flattery and pie-in-the-sky speeches about a sudden change of habits. Most every consolidation professional will attempt to insist that, all of a sudden, you will pay more than a minimum obligation. Know yourself and your buying habits. If you have not been able to restrain spending in the past, there's no reason to believe that a sense of responsibility will suddenly come your way absent any effort, and, depending on the program, the sudden availability of open credit accounts could just make things worse. At the same time, though we would certainly advise borrowers to do everything they could to pay down their debts regardless of what the minimum payments are fixed at, one also has to make sure that they do not begin a similarly obsessive strategy of earmarking every dollar earned toward repaying past debts. Much as you would reasonably hope to devote all available funds toward debt elimination, the smart borrower yet maintains a cash reserve to guard against every bad patch. For those loans attached to collateral equity loans, particularly, it should be of the greatest importance to ensure breathing room. Real estate values have become so tenuous of late that no homeowner who cares about their investment, or, more to the point, their family, should dare risk their precious equity for a quick fix, and debt consolidation in the wrong scenario could actually backfire against the consumer. Considering that the financial obligations likely came about through reckless spending, consumers must be very careful not to overindulge their new desire for a clean slate. Loan officers, in particular, are at fault for convincing their clients about the future health of an uncertain property market, or evading the depressing but pertinent details about foreclosure and the danger of equity loan consolidation. However the mortgage industry attempts to weather the storm partially caused by predatory lenders acting in their own best interests, the effects of the loans that they pushed upon unwary borrowers continue to bother the national economy. One should never entirely trust the lenders. After all, credit card companies and mortgage loan companies depend upon the borrower's willingness to sustain payments and extend them for years if not decades. In fact, lenders list each client's balance as a bankable asset to be sold or traded to other lenders, or, ironically, used as collateral for their own loans. Whatever the lender's literature or representatives may say about helping borrowers minimize their debt load with an eye toward eventual debt elimination, their business model explicitly demands a continual revolving debt cycle that forces debtors into a life of servitude, ever subsidizing their financial burdens without actually getting rid of them. We are not necessarily suggesting that you close all cards after consolidation, though, with some programs, that will be necessary, because of the effect that would have towards your credit rating. The ever-powerful FICO score likes to see some accounts open to demonstrate that you still maintain some credit viability, and, with all accounts closed, you would be starting again from scratch with no current credit history to draw upon. Ideally, you would maintain one or two of the oldest accounts or the accounts with the largest available balances. Interest rates should also be part of this discussion, but it is of sacrosanct importance that these accounts not be used regardless of how much you may wish to resume purchasing. For convenience's sake, it might be useful to take out a bank card for ordinary spending, but only one that has debit purposes without overdraft potential. All the same, much as plastic may now seem an undeniable essential of the modern consumer experience, there are reasons to still avoid utilizing many cards at all. Studies have shown that household economics are utterly ruined through the casual use of cards, credit or debit, when attempting to maintain some sort of workable budget. Once families no longer have to count up the prices of the items that they are purchasing, it seems all common sense goes entirely out the window. For this reason, we recommend that debtors, even before they have begun the process of consolidation, attempt to refrain from using cards even during their normal shopping for the household. For that matter, they should try to not even bring an ATM card upon their person and make do with whatever seems reasonable when leaving their house. If you only have $20 to spend at the supermarket, you will be much more inclined to question the necessity of various purchases and also make more of an attempt to comparison shop by trying lower-cost brands and such. One should be careful not to ignore the bulk discounts for large families, but, by and large, this sort of tactic goes a very long way in conserving money to bolster savings that can better be used paying down the debts that you already have. For larger purchases, still, even those most demonstrably needed, the smart household should see the need for such purchases coming well ahead of time and maintain a small savings each week to help pay for the item in cash. While we have to acknowledge that some things may indeed be reasonably justified by resorting to lay-away plans, washing machines, say, or refrigerators that suddenly go on the fritz must be replaced, home entertainment systems or family trips or any such leisure indulgences hardly fall under the same guidelines. All the same, even though we understand that vehicles and residences require loans and mortgages, you must make sure that you do not let yourself become liable for more than you really need, regardless of what debt consolidation specialists may pretend. Consider previously owned automobiles or smaller homes in less desirable areas of town until you can put the proper amount of cash down, especially considering the stormy forecast of this economy. With regards to property loans, for example, never even think about taking out a mortgage for more than 80% of the appraised value. Not only will you have to pay out of so-called mortgage insurance to the lender, in reality, this is less insurance than an extravagant and usurious monthly penalty insuring nothing more than the new homeowner's foolishness and the lender's security. It just doesn't make sense in this time of real estate market instability to gamble with so dear an investment. Even though refraining from big-ticket items you would ordinarily have bought or rigorously cutting down the household budget might require some short-term sacrifices, you're often saving yourself sacrifices farther down the road. The first step, though it can sometimes be difficult, is to take stock of the money that you're spending each month. Try, even for a week, writing down the amount of money that you spend on groceries, on restaurants, on entertainment, and outlining different things that you may be able to cut back on. Often, it's easier than you think. Are you in the habit of picking up a coffee every morning before work? Try waking up 5 minutes earlier and brewing it yourself. If you make the batch and microwave it each morning, you can even save yourself the time. Do you catch a beer each evening after work? Is it imported? See what you think about the domestic brews. Pick up recipes off the internet so that you can have the experience of dining out even when at home. So much money is spent upon the kitchens of restaurants, but, sometimes, even a few degrees of difference can make all the difference between settling and making everything you want out of what you already have. Not only is this sort of do-it-yourself approach helpful to paying down bills over a short-term debt consolidation, it can have a long-term effect when attempting to manage debt over the course of a lifetime. The basic key for any realistic debt control should be to figure out where you're spending the most of your money and then try to make a couple of small alterations that can make a real difference. Even a slight daily change can be the difference between just barely scraping by and sulking away $50 each week for savings or paying down the debt. All of this will clear the way for you being able to live exactly as you want to in the future. Would you rather put all your money toward paying off your debt or investing toward your future? Once you make a solid decision to put your monthly and weekly spending under control and stand behind that with all of your resolve, you can put yourself in the position to get rid of your outstanding debt without even necessarily resorting to external consolidation. And, once you've cleared away your debt payments, you'll find money that you never even knew you had. Spending is a disease, you know. with symptoms of addiction just as real and just as ruinous as any other addiction. Much as we make fun of supposed shopaholics through t-shirts and bumper stickers, this is no laughing matter, and often chronic behavior such as purchasing beyond limits can be signs of more serious mental problems. Debtors Anonymous exists for such a reason, and those consumers who feel that they can no longer control their buying impulses would be advised to contact their local chapter. Even for borrowers whose problems aren't that serious, there are ways to help themselves with what have to be seen as poor habits. Many of the consumers we've talked to found some solace in attempting to sell the less desirable evidence of what they had bought. Look through your garage or basement and see what can be sold. So many American families have collected scads of possessions they rarely if at all use but which could be readily sold to fuel the debt consolidation payments. Garage or yard sales are the most common avenue toward resale, but don't forget about classified ads for eBay and Craigslist. In this modern society, it's remarkably easy to find a buyer for even the most seemingly worthless trifle or create a bidding war for those pieces of value.